Right here on the desk, we have a PC from an Australian retailer called Techfast. Now, you guys have been messaging me, telling me how good the deals are from this company. And when I saw the price, which is 636 Aussie dollars delivered, my jaw dropped. I had to get one of these PCs and check out what Techfast is all about. Now, upon receiving this unit, there is a few things I've realized, and we'll go over all those things in today's video. But what you're getting at face value here is a Ryzen 5 3500X, GTX 1660, 8GB of DDR4 memory, a motherboard, power supply, case, and a 240GB SSD. If you were to put that into USD terms, that's roughly 430 USD for a very contemporary system that is brand new. And the thing is, on top of that, we're paying 10% GST taxes. But is there some catches to a build like this? Let's pull it all apart and investigate what is going on with this PC right here. Welcome back to Tech Yes City, and right here we've got this Techfast PC. Though before I can critique anything about it, I do have to take it through its paces, and one of the easiest tests we're going to do, of course, side panel on versus side panel off. Though I will say, going into this, I have never seen this brand of power supply before, and I'm also concerned about the single stick of DDR4 memory with a Ryzen CPU. And also another alarming thing I've noticed is the 2 Molex to a PCIe 8-pin that they're using in conjunction with this unknown power supply. Anyway, let's take this thing for a test drive and then come back. And so after all the benchmarks, there is a lot to talk about here. And I'm gonna get the good stuff out of the way with first, because basically I feel like the good outweighs the negative. And that's mainly because the price of this PC is so ridiculously cheap. I mean, put it this way, if you wanted to put this whole PC together yourself, I tallied up about 729 Aussie dollars to do so. And again, that $636 price tag that I paid for it is a lot cheaper than the 729 if we were to get the cheapest prices off staticice.com.au. So we're basically coming out of this with so much value. And honestly, how Techfast are bringing this value, I've asked around a few different retailers and they said they've got no idea. The only thing I can conclude from these deals is that Techfast is not making any money when they do these sales on these PCs, rather they're just trying to get their name out. And I guess they're doing a good job of that, because you guys let me know to take a look at their computers and see what I think of them. And so the value's there. If you can get a sale on these parts, the value's definitely there, especially for the core components like the A320 motherboard, the single 8GB stick of DDR4 memory, the 3500X, the 1660 Super, and then on the invoice it only said it had a 1660, so they upgraded it for me to a 1660 Super because I had to wait 2.5 weeks for this to come in the mail. And I will say, first of all, the case is so small. It's ridiculously small. I'll put a size comparison up against the actual standard size ATX cases that I use, which are already pretty small. This is like the minimum I personally go with when I'm selling a gaming PC, and they're very cheap on their own. They're only 39 Aussie dollars, and you know, put some bling fans in them, and I've got something that looks decent and also performs decent. This case right here, and when I tallied up that 729 AUD budget, this case right here, I put it around 29 Aussie dollars. But the thing is, I would not buy a case like this ever for a gaming PC. And I wouldn't recommend anyone use a PC like this for something with a 1660 Super and a 6-core AMD processor. Basically, this case right here is a mini ITX or a micro ATX home theater PC style case, or an office PC case. The airflow is basically terrible. It was so terrible to the point where when I did the smoke test, there was no smoke blowing through the case, or virtually none. So that's basically an indicator that there's going to be no fresh air coming in and going out of this case. So your components, and as we tested with the test before, are going to overheat. The GPU started thermal throttling when I was testing it in Unigine Heaven, and then with the side panel off, it was maxing out at 74 degrees. So we had a huge difference there where we had GPU throttling with this case with the side panel on and then the side panel off, it did okay because some of that hot air could now get out the side. So the case that they've used is absolutely hideous. I'd like to see them use a little bit of a better case. And I mean, I understand, I get why they're using this case. They're bringing the cost down and the shipping is coming down because of that. They're fitting this in a box that is, again, smaller than the standard ATX cases that I'd use. So I'm guessing shipping costs them maybe around $12 or something like that, Australia-wide. But now we're gonna move into the power supply, which I feel for a build like this is just totally wrong. They've got a power supply called an A1, which doesn't even have any PCIe connectors. So what they've done is they've used two Molex connectors and adapted a PCIe connection to it to run the graphics card. When I was doing the test, there was actually a lot of hot air blowing outside of the power supply. And so the rating on this really looks like it's about a 350 watt power supply, judging by that 12 volt line and the amperage available on it. So the power supply that they've used, I wouldn't be too confident in putting this in a mid-tier gaming PC like they've done here, especially coupled again with that fact that the case is a hot box oven. And then the last critiquing point that we're going to go on to is the single stick of DDR4. Now, I get it, right? The price is low, they're cutting the costs and they're advertising it as such, but they're also advertising it as a gaming PC. And so when we're looking at what's inside a gaming PC, especially coupled with Ryzen, you want to be using dual channel memory. So two 4GB sticks would be a much better choice for people who want to stick to a budget and get the best performance possible. So when I did the test with two sticks versus a single stick versus even higher speed memory, we can see here that two sticks of memory makes a huge difference in some titles. Where GTA 5, we saw a difference of around close to 20% FPS. Assassin's Creed Syndicate and also Strange Brigade, we didn't see much of a difference there, but Shadows of the Tomb Raider again saw a huge difference by not having dual channel memory, and then Red Dead Redemption 2 saw a significant boost by having dual channel memory too. So basically, Ryzen loves memory speeds as well as having dual channel memory. And when you don't have that in a Ryzen gaming PC, it's going to affect your performance to the point where someone with a lower spec PC may be getting better performance than you and you're scratching your head. You're like, wow, why is my computer performing so slow? Why is it stuttering and what can I do to fix that? So summing it up, they're the three main critiquing points with this whole build. They have used the BioStar A320 motherboard, which I didn't really have an issue with. I think it's an okay board, especially coupled with a 3500X. In the BIOS, there's the ability to lock in your XMP profiles, albeit pretty limited. It still did work. And for some odd reason, it was locking in lower XMP memory speeds than usual, and a 3600 megahertz kit didn't work on this motherboard, even though it dropped it down to 3466 too. So I'd say a 3000 megahertz kit of memory would go perfect with this motherboard with the Ryzen 5 3500X. And so here's we're gonna move on to the part where, would I recommend this PC? And if so, why? And if so, why not? And it's a situational recommendation because I'd personally be buying a PC from Techfast again, in that if I get this build in the future, I'll simply pull out the CPU and the GPU and maybe just put an APU in and call it a day and sell it as an office PC or a home theater PC or a super low budget Fortnite gaming PC. So there is that option there. And the parts, really, when you look at it, you are getting a bargain for what's inside. But I just think for the average guy who's going to get into PC gaming and they see the price of this and they're like, wow, it's so good for the money, and then they buy it, they need to be aware that there is some drawbacks with this in that it won't run particularly 100%. And so if you guys wanted to make this 100%, my easiest recommendations would be to change over the power supply straight away, put another 8 gigabytes of memory inside, and then leave the side panel off. And that would actually give you a good gaming experience for an extra, say, 80 Aussie dollars or 60 USD. However, what we're going to do right now is we are going to change over this PC into a different case. We're going to add a 1 terabyte hard drive. We're going to change the power supply too, and we're also going to add another stick of memory and tune that up and see what kind of performance we can get compared to the original configuration. Let's get this tech yes journey underway and continue on with upgrading the Techfast PC. And now here we are with the final product on the desk. We've got RGB bling. We've even got a controller to change it to whatever mood we're feeling. And that Nighthawk memory, that actually goes really well with this whole build. It's got like this ping effect that runs through both the sticks. And I gotta say, whole build is now complete, including the XMP profiles turned on, the performance, and the temperatures as well are a lot better than they were before. Keep in mind, this GPU is going to 77 degrees in heaven, but it's not thermal throttling. And so it's about 3 degrees higher than our open air test bed scenario. But on the flip side of things, it's 30 degrees in here tonight. So it was 3 degrees hotter than when we tested it. So it's working out about the same as an open air test case scenario. I know you guys are thinking, damn, how do you do it in 30-degree heat? Don't worry, I've already been there, done that. That's, I guess, how some of the humor comes out in the videos. But regardless, we've got here Windows 10 Home already pre-installed on their SSD, and they actually install the NVIDIA drivers as well. So that's gonna save a lot of time to get up and running if you buy a PC off them, which is actually a really good thing. And of course, if you just wanna smash in a Windows 10 Pro key, then Windows will automatically update from Home to Pro as soon as you hit that key in and then click Activate. It's actually a very quick process, takes like a minute. And so summing up today's build with the retailer down under that is honestly giving some of the best prices, not just in Australia, but in the world. I haven't seen a retailer do what Techfast does, so props to them. And when talking to other retailers, I'm not gonna name any names or anything like that, they just don't know how they're doing it exactly. They speculated that there's basically in Australia, there are middlemen, and they're known as like Cinex. And basically a lot of the retailers have to go through this big distributor in Australia to get their products. However, I believe Techfast, and I don't know, this is just my opinion, I don't know for certain, I believe Techfast may be going directly to sources in China and Taiwan and getting their purchases in bulk. So basically when it comes to ordering parts as a retailer from a store, you have to put down what's known as a minimum order quantity. So you'll have to order at least maybe 10 units for GPUs or 100 units, or in Techfast's case, they could be ordering 1,000 units at a time. So they could be ordering 1,000 1660 Supers and getting them for a really good price because they're bulk buying. And that means that they can then pass on those savings to the individual. And now speaking of these minimum order quantities, if we order 10, for example, with a 1660 Super, we may be able to get it for 300 Aussie dollars a piece. If we order 100, maybe able to get it for 290. If we order 1,000, we may be able to get it for 275. So you can see that we're now beating our competitors who are only ordering 10 by $25 a piece. That means if we're selling more of these PCs, every time we sell a PC, we're making $25 more, simply because we are now ordering in bulk. And so they're definitely getting parts in bulk and getting direct prices from their distributors. I believe they even maybe have a direct case manufacturer in China that makes them up their cases for dirt cheap. And I believe they might be able to get these cases made up for as little as $3 or $4 a pop. And so that's how they get the cases so cheap. In terms of the power supplies, I'd have no idea how much they source them for. I'm guessing maybe as low as $12 a piece USD, so that'd be about 16 Aussie dollars. However, that being said, those two things aside, I think the rest of the build was pretty solid. So I'd love to see Techfast maybe just get a bigger and better case with better airflow, as well as putting in a better power supply. Even something like we used here today, the Silverstone 500 watt, which cost me from a retailer 45 Aussie dollars. If I had those two extra components in today's build, I'd be over the moon. And I wouldn't mind paying Techfast an extra like $50 or so to add those two components instead of that case and power supply I've got here at the moment, because I actually have no need for those two components. The 8 gigabytes of DDR4 memory, that's pretty good. I can get another stick and utilize that in a budget build or something like that. But the PC I built up here today, the way that I do things is I add bling, and for instance, the PC I've got here on the table, that's already pre-sold. So someone already booked it up when I told them the specs and all the bling. They've already put a deposit down on that. So today's PC is already gone out the door. So they're passing on the savings to the end consumer through bulk buying, and that's a really cool thing. I love it how Techfast is giving Aussies the best prices on some of these really popular parts. I will say for certain that they're not making any money on software installs, because they include the Windows 10 Home install, but there's absolutely no bloatware on there. There's no antiviruses pre-installed. And so some PC manufacturers will get paid massive amounts of money from some of these places, like Norton's Antivirus will pay HP. This is just a hypothetical. And then they'll install 10,000 copies of their antivirus on their computers for them. So there's all these affiliation deals that go on. I don't think Techfast have any affiliation deals with software, which is good for the end user in that they're not going to get any bloatware. They can just install their games as soon as they get the PC. Though another thing is they also make their money, and you're probably wondering, well, how are they making their money then? Because they're not making much money on these parts that they're selling you, Brian. They may even be just selling at cost on these sales. And that's just what it is right there. It's a sale. So basically outside of the sales, they'll be making money on their PCs. And they've also got on their website the option to upgrade. Say for instance, you add another 8 gigabytes of memory, that's an extra $70. You upgrade the case, the power supply, it might be an extra $50 here and there. And so it ends up tallying up in their favor where they can keep their old case and power supply and then add the additional RAM, and then they get maybe an extra $200 in total for what the same thing I've done here today. But I get to keep that 8 gigabyte stick of memory, and I've also get to keep that case and power supply, and I've also got a 1 terabyte hard drive thrown on top. And so that's how they make also their money, is via upgrades. So basically bulk buying and doing upgrades like they do on their website, that's the two things combined, Techfast are gonna make the money. And of course, everyone in the world's gotta make money for the work they do. And so ultimately with Techfast, I'm just torn down the middle because I love what they're doing on one aspect, but on the other aspect, I'm not a big fan. So the things I love that they're doing is that they're giving the consumer in Australia hard value. They're bringing the prices down. And I know for a fact, pretty much every Aussie loves getting a deal. But then on the other side of the fence, they're doing like a really shoddy power supply and this case, which I've never seen a case like this before, where it's a hot box and they're using a 2 Molex to 8-pin adapter. Now, don't get me wrong, I've used these adapters in the past, but they're always with older power supplies that are rated a lot higher for the builds I'm putting them on. It's just that because they're old, they didn't have the PCIe cables as a standard when they were made back at their time. In 2019, PCIe is like a standard for any power supply that's a true 400 watt and over. And so my advice coming out of this would be for Techfast, keep doing what you're doing with the prices. I love the fact that you're bringing the hard value, but at the same time, I'd also love to see you guys go off in two different directions. And that is just offer a motherboard, CPU, GPU, and RAM combo and bring the cost down even more if you can. And then on the other side of the fence, just make those gaming PCs ready from the get-go in 2 sticks of memory, for instance, and also a case with at least some airflow and also a bit more room to breathe and a better power supply, of course. If you did those things, you could consider me, after this video, a Techfast fanboy. But as it stands, I just wouldn't be selling a PC personally in that kind of state where the GPU's thermal throttling, we've got this power supply with 2 Molex to an 8-pin adapter. It's just one thing, like, I mean, me personally, the reason why I put better components in my build is not just for the end user to have a good experience, but also if that PC breaks down, that's a waste of time for me. I've then got to fix it up and waste more money and more time fixing it up. And then also the customer gets hassled and gets frustrated, and they're probably not going to recommend me to a friend or someone else to build them a PC. So that's just how I roll here at Tech Yes City. And if you guys enjoyed today's video, then be sure to hit that like button for us, and also drop a comment in the comment section below letting us know how you roll and what you think of today's video. Do you like going behind the scenes and looking at how retail works? Especially in Australia, love reading your thoughts and opinions as always. But speaking of thoughts and opinions, we got the question of the day. It comes from YJ, and he asked, why does disabling SMT increase FPS? And also, which A320 board would you recommend that has BIOS flashback? This is a very good question from YJ, and it has to do with a few different things. And mainly being, it depends on the game and how many cores or threads it's been optimized for. And of course, how those instruction sets work, whether they utilize more cache per thread as opposed to having SMT off versus on. And so you may see some slight FPS gains by disabling SMT with that particular title. Though keep in mind, when I've disabled this in the past, I've generally only seen slight FPS gains depending on the game. And of course, if that game needs more threads than you disabling SMT, then you could lose FPS too. So that is a negative that you risk running. But at the same time, if you play that one game day in, day out, and you love playing it competitively and you need that extra edge, then disabling SMT, maybe it's something you may wish to consider, but keep in mind on the flip side, by disabling SMT, I have never seen a night and day difference in FPS gains. In that I haven't seen FPS suddenly go from 50 to now 80 by disabling SMT. So for me personally, I wouldn't disable SMT on my main rig. I utilize the extra threads way too much for it to be a detriment if I kept it on. Also, in relation to the A320 flashback, I don't know of any A320s that support BIOS flashback without having the CPU installed. My best recommendation there, if you want to get Ryzen 5 3500X or 3600 on that motherboard, would be just simply to ask the seller if they can update the BIOS for you or make sure it's Ryzen 3000 ready, which some of the A320 motherboards carry that sticker on, so you know you can just buy it and whack in that 6-core Zen 2 CPU and have happy days. Though I hope that answers your question, and if you've made it this far and you're still watching and you're not subbed already, bang that sub button, ring that bell, and I'll see you in another tech video very soon. Peace out for now. Bye.